we're going to do opening comments. There are 2 minutes for opening comments. They're going to be in alphabetical order by last name. And then we're going to do 1 minute for questions. We have some pre-prepared questions as well as the questions from the audience. Quinn will be moderating those. We have Missy, our timekeeper, up here. She's going to keep them at 2 minutes or 1 minute. If it gets to 30 seconds, she'll give you a 30-second warning and then a stop. Please be respectful of the time so that everybody has an opportunity to answer questions. We are also asking the audience, especially with this being broadcast live, please refrain from applause or any other commentary from the audience. It really distracts from the viewer being able to make a decision. So we really like for you guys to refrain from any commentary from the audience. That includes signs or any propaganda. So thank you for being with us today, and we really appreciate the candidates joining us today as well. We appreciate you guys for being here. John, Whitney, Gary, thank you guys. It is never easy to run for public office. It is definitely putting your life out into the world, and we appreciate it. As a business community, we know how important your leadership is to St. Joseph, and we are really thankful that you're willing to go through this process. And thank you guys for being here today, and we're going to get started. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Quinn.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. I just want to, again, thank everyone here coming out on a cold morning, being here tonight. And thank you, everyone, tuning in live. And thank you for the candidates. Again, thanks for running. It's not an easy job to do. We have about a little over an hour. We're going to work through 5 topics. Those will be crime and public safety, economic development, community appearance, infrastructure, and leadership. Again, I want to reiterate, you will each get 1 minute to answer those questions, 1 minute for rebuttal. Please stick to that 1 minute. We have a lot of questions we want to get through. Now, not all of you will be asked the same question. Again, that's to ensure we get to as many topics as possible. But again, you can rebut if you do have something to say. Like Natalie said, we're going to start with opening statements. Each of you get 2 minutes. Mr. Josendale, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I'm John Josendale, and again, I wanted to first introduce myself, a little bit about me. I was born and raised in St. Joe. I was educated here until I got to go to military school. My father was a military man, so I got to do that. Went to the University of Missouri, got a degree in business from Mizzou. Then I went out in the world and started working. I've worked for a company for 48 years. And about 15 years into that, I decided I wanted to get a master's degree in business. So I commuted while I was still working, commuted out to the West Coast, and got an MBA from Pepperdine. My experience gives me a lot of background in working with people, working with organizations. In St. Joseph, I've been involved in a number of different organizations. I was with Family Guidance for a while. I was the chairman of their board. I've sat on the board of a number of different organizations, such as a number of different civic-minded organizations, United Way. I was a loan executive, so on and so forth. I'm running for mayor because I want to make a change. We were an all-American city, and I want to bring us back. I want to bring the pride back to the people of St. Joe. I enjoyed growing up here when we were kids. You got to run free. You didn't have to worry about locking your doors. So I want to be able to bring the city back, bring pride back into the people that are here, and I think that I have the ability to do that.
Josendale. Ms. Lanning, we'll go to you. And also, please speak into the mic. If you have to move it towards yourself, do that.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Whitney Lanning, and I am a wife, mother, former foster parent, nonprofit executive, and I am a candidate for mayor of St. Joseph. I was born and raised in Kansas. I played college basketball at Oklahoma State University, and eventually moved to Kansas City, Missouri to go to graduate school at Avila University. While I was going to school full-time, I was also working full-time for the Jackson County Children's Division as a child abuse and neglect investigator. After several years of doing that, my husband and I relocated to St. Joseph. We chose this community to raise our family. And I began working as the director of Head Start and Early Head Start here at a local nonprofit. 2 years into that position, I became the executive director, which is a position that I currently hold today. And in the last almost 10 years that I've been in the community, I've had the opportunity to work on several different boards and commissions. And in that experience, I've recognized that we can do better. We can be better. And so what I found in starting this campaign back in the spring is that we're all kind of talking about the same issues. And so the issues that I really want to focus on as the mayor are infrastructure, that's of course roads and bridges, but it's also childcare accessibility. It's also access to broadband. I also want to improve community appearance and address addiction, mental illness, and homelessness, and then of course also focus on workforce development. I believe that my skills and experience will allow me to be successful in the position of mayor, and I'd appreciate your vote next Tuesday.
Thank you, Ms. Lanning. Mr. Lewis, 2 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gary Lewis, and I want to be your next mayor of St. Joe. I'm running a grassroots campaign deeply rooted in the community. It is one made up of friends, family members, and volunteers. I am not representing old money. I am not representing new money. I am not sponsored by anyone, and therefore, if elected, I will only answer to myself and the residents of St. Joe. I am simply a concerned citizen who has a calling to be the mayor of St. Joe and to help lead us into better times. I am a local product. I was born and raised and educated in St. Joe. I made a conscious decision many years ago to raise my family here, and I have no regrets about that decision. I'm a graduate of Central High School and was active in student politics there. I attended Missouri Western State College as a student athletic trainer. I later graduated from Missouri Western State University with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. And incidentally, my family, my immediate family, my brother, my sister, and myself, with our children, we have 12 graduate degrees from Missouri Western. So I believe that makes me uniquely qualified on this panel to be a liaison for projects and partnerships between the city and Missouri Western. I'm a graduate of the U.S. Air Force School of Aerospace Medicine as a flight medic. I was a nationally registered EMT and paramedic for 13 years. I'm a graduate of Leadership St. Joseph. I attended the University of Missouri and graduated with a master's degree in healthcare administration. Been employed locally by Heartland Health as a registered nurse and paramedic in the emergency room and interventional radiology. I was recruited out of that hospital setting and worked almost 20 years for two of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world in their hospital specialty sales division. It was there I won several awards and received extensive sales training, marketing, and leadership training at the highest level on a quarterly basis. I spent almost 3 years with an international healthcare IT company out of Chicago, much like Cerner, responsible for all hospital accounts across 12 states. I've been a small business owner on 3 different occasions, and I've been most recently employed at Tyson Foods by an occupational health nurse, as an occupational health nurse. I've been selected to sit on many community boards, and I want to be the mayor of St. Joe. So.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Wilkinson, 2 minutes.
Hi. My name is Gary Wilkinson, and I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. You getting that feedback? I feel like Lou Gehrig up here. I tried to get the organizers not to set me and Mr. Lewis together. Both of us are Gary. It's hard enough to tell us apart as it is. But people ask, why run for mayor? Well, because I believe I can do the job first. As a matter of fact, I've done it before. My second term in the city council, I was selected by the other council members to serve as deputy mayor. When Mayor Glenda Kelly was out of town, I presided as mayor. I recall presiding over a council meeting at which we were set to set the rates for the franchise-free agreement. Now, franchise fees are levied to recoup the cost of industry's use of the right-of-ways, public right-of-ways for energy, infrastructure, and power lines. I got to speed it up so you give me the sign. No one enjoys paying taxes. Of course, the industry leaders were no exception. I recall Mr. Jack Barkley, president of Wire Rope, was one of those in attendance. Some 30 years earlier, I was an 11-year-old, and I went to his house. Our church used to go soliciting, gathering funds for the needy. Mr. Barkley came to the door, gave me a generous donation. Now, fast forward, 30 years later, I'm chairing this meeting, these big industry leaders don't like us getting into their pockets. There's a lot of loud noise. I have to use my gavel. All right, gentlemen, please, calm down, calm down. I wanted to go up to him and say, you remember when I came to your door? But I had a job to do, and I got that job done. And that's the way I would do as mayor of St. Joseph, take care of the interests of the city. And I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson. All right, we're going to move into questions now. Our first topic is crime and public safety. I think it's hard not to start with the one thing that has dominated our lives for the last 2 years, and that's the COVID-19 pandemic. From the latest reports, there were 267 positive cases Monday and 53 hospitalizations in St. Joseph as of yesterday. Mr. Lewis, we'll start with you. How would you handle the current COVID-19 situation? 1 minute.
I would handle the current COVID-19 situation pretty much the way it's being handled right now. I have a lot of trust in the CMO out at Heartland and the community leaders also making these decisions. I think initially during the COVID crisis, we did hit a panic button. Of course, we didn't know. We didn't have a treatment. We did not have a vaccine. So public health is the utmost interest. But as we learn more and as we find out more, our management skills that we apply to the situation are going to be different. As of yesterday and the day before, there's some treatments that are ineffective and some studies showing that things that we haven't done in the past are possibly being effective. We haven't had a really good chance to study what we've done in the past 18 months to 2 years in COVID, and I think that's coming right now. So once we evaluate our actions, get the results, and formulate some consensus, I think we can move on and more appropriately treat this, because I don't think COVID's going anywhere. I think it's something we will have to live with in the future. We'll have to learn how to manage it, and we'll have to go on our daily lives.
Would you ever consider a mask mandate or a stay-at-home order?
I haven't seen enough evidence to support a mask mandate or stay-at-home order right now.
Okay. I want to ask all of you this question. Mr. Wilkinson, we'll go to you now. How would you handle the COVID-19 situation?
Well, I have an EMT sitting right next to me right now. First thing I would do is go to the professionals, get their advice on this. Everybody has an opinion, just like we have noses, but we need to go to those who have studied this issue. When it first came out, there were a lot of unknowns, a lot of variables, and it was important that we address the issue. So I didn't have a problem putting on a mask. It was not an invasive thing. I wasn't introducing any substance to my body, so that I didn't have a problem with that. But now that we have more information, we need to come together with professionals, people that know what's going on, and come up with a solution. And I think it is up to us as leaders to get that information out to the public in the best way possible.
Same question. Would you ever consider a mask mandate or stay-at-home order?
Well, as I was just saying, I don't have a problem wearing a mask because it's protecting other people, and I don't think it's harming me. So if it was warranted after discussing it with the other professionals, I wouldn't have a problem doing that. But right now, I don't see that it's necessary.
Okay. Mr. Josendale, to you, how would you handle the COVID-19 situation? If you can speak into the mic. If you don't speak in the mic, there's feedback, so thank you.
Is that better? There. Okay. For the COVID, as someone who is fully vaccinated, had COVID after the fact, had infusion, had a little bit of everything, I would let it run its course. We've gone through a lot. It's going to be there. The consensus opinion that you're hearing now is that it's going to be there. We're going to have to deal with it. As far as how I would present myself with it, you know, again, I think I've recommended, there are different people I've talked to and recommended getting the vaccine. But it's everybody's choice. It's no one's right to tell everyone else what they need to do. So I do not agree with forcing issues on it.
Would you consider a mask mandate or stay-at-home order?
I would not. You know, it's at the point now that we're going to have to live with COVID. It's like a cold. As I said, I was vaccinated, boosted, the whole works, and I got COVID, and it was like a very bad cold. And but I have to tell you that to do the mask mandate, to do the stay-at-home orders, you're just prolonging the situation. Look at what it's done to us over the last couple of years. So no, I would not.
Ms. Lanning, same question. How would you handle the COVID-19 situation?
So this has been a topic that we get asked almost every time. What I will say is that the decision to wear a mask or be vaccinated should be yours. It shouldn't be the decision of the government. I do believe that when the pandemic first came out, we didn't know a lot about it, and I think that the collaboration that we saw between the city council and the health department and the hospitals and the health systems, I think that was fantastic. And what I would like to see moving forward, it's hard to predict. If we've learned anything over the last 2 years, is that it's very difficult to predict what's happening and what will happen in the future. But I think the accessibility of the vaccine, whether you choose to get it or not, has created a higher level of personal choice. I don't support vaccine mandates, I don't support mask mandates, but I do support your decision to make that for you and your family. I also support businesses in their decision whether or not to make that a requirement.
Okay, thank you. I want to move on to crime. St. Joseph had 2 murders in 2020. That number quadrupled to 8 this last year in 2021. Mr. Wilkinson, we'll start with you. What needs to be done to limit violent crime here in town?
Although I do feel we live in a safe community, those numbers are concerning, and I think we need to address those. Law enforcement officers are one of the first lines of contact in dealing with concerns of the public, and it's usually in high-stress situations. It's important that the individuals selected to serve in this capacity receive top-level training in all aspects of public interaction. These officers deal with individuals of different cultures, different ethnicities, and are expected to handle these situations in a professional and effective manner. So I believe we need to give them our utmost support, both these men and women, providing with the best in training, the best in equipment, and competitive salaries. Currently, we're understaffed by 20 in our public safety, and that's the police department. Other cities are providing bonuses. We don't have the ability to do that, so I think we need to work on that.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson. Same question, Ms. Lanning, to you. What needs to be done to limit violent crime?
So I think it's important for us to remember that city government doesn't have the ability to prosecute or sentence criminals. So our hands are somewhat tied with that. I do believe that we need to be, harder on repeat offenders and violent offenders, but we don't have that scope of authority for our community. I do believe that we need good wages and benefits and equipment for our local first responders and our police department. We have to make sure that they have competitive wages compared to other communities. We have a great new program that's come out called Grow Your Own, which is a partnership with Missouri Western, where we're going to grow our own officers. But if we don't provide competitive wages, benefits, and the right equipment, those officers are not going to stay here. I believe we need to address the root causes of crime, which from what I have been able to tell are really addiction and mental illness. So for me, I would really want to see the city be a convener to address those issues.
Thank you, Ms. Lanning. Similar question, Mr. Lewis, we'll start with you. There are currently 19 empty officer positions at the St. Joseph Police Department. How would you address the local police shortage? You can speak into the mic.
As we all know, our police department is short 20 to 21 officers right now. I believe this is a crisis level. Shifts are understaffed, and there's reports that our school resource officers could be pulled for our schools to help with overworked staff on the streets and administrative duties. This leads to overworking and bad morale and ultimately impacts our community safety. We need to make our salaries more comparable. We need to look at benefits packages. We need to make the job more attractive to individuals that want to stay in St. Joe. I agree with Ms. Lanning. I support the Missouri Western initiative to grow your own officers here in St. Joe. And I want to also add that I think 87%, according to the community survey, of our citizens feel safe and secure in the city. So my compliments to all members of local law enforcement for doing more with less. We do have crime in St. Joe, and it has taken a little bit of spike in the last year or so. I will give a little bit of pass to that, to COVID, for some stressful times. Stop.
Mr. Josendale, same question. How would you address the local police shortage?
Right now we're 19 officers short. We have 4, I think, currently at the university working. Giving the support to the police force as it stands now, making sure that they're heard, working in hand with the county commissioners, because part of the conflict goes back and forth right now between the sheriff's department and police department. We need to be able to work together, encouraging people to stay, giving them the right wages, giving them the right support so that they feel the job they do is received well. And part of that is taking it to the next step, working with prosecuting attorneys and the judges in town. You know, and again, it's not the city, but the city council and the mayor have the ability to influence those people to make sure that the people are being heard.
Mr. Josendale. Ms. Lanning, do you think St. Joseph has a drug problem?
Yes.
How do you think that can be addressed?
I got the easy one. So what I've seen over the last 10 years that I've been in this community is that we have a significant lack of resources to address addiction and mental illness. Much of that is co-occurring. To me, you know, we've gone 10 years or maybe even more than that without an inpatient rehabilitation drug addiction service. And so some of that is coming back. We're doing some things with Family Guidance has a new behavioral health urgent care clinic that's going to be coming. There is a inpatient treatment that's not available to people that are not insured. And so to me, it's really having the mayor and having city council bringing people together to talk about what this issue is, what are the resources that we can use to solve them, and making sure that they have the proper funding and resources to help those that are affected.
Mr. Lewis, the St. Joseph's poverty rate is nearly 19%. That's about 6% higher than the state average. What could you do as mayor to reduce generational poverty? And could you move the mic closer to your mouth? Thank you. 1 minute.
I think it's about opportunities and economic development in St. Joe. I think we need to more. I think economic development opportunities for those individuals in St. Joe that are looking for those. Placement in jobs. I know there's a lot of jobs available, and people are, employers especially right now, are looking for anybody and everybody to come work at their restaurant or their business. So I think matching those up, pairing those up with people that are seeking employment, gainful employment would be a good opportunity. Programs, initiatives to train those individuals to accept the jobs and be qualified for the jobs that are available. I think that educating those individuals, also make sure that they stay in school, stay in high school, become educated, not just through our K through 12 program, but maybe through Hilliers or some sort of job placement program to get them qualified to find a job that they qualified for and they can thrive in.
Mr. Josendale, the latest count found about 118 unhoused individuals in St. Joseph. What steps would you take to aid the homeless population?
I am a hand up, not a handout person. By that I mean that we can supply housing for the homeless, but the city is not responsible for that. There are agencies involved that support those efforts. To just put them in housing, you find the fact that you're not dealing with the root cause, which again, going back to your earlier question, could be drugs, could be mental health. And we have to be able to address the whole thing. But the city is responsible to work with and encourage the agencies that do that. And it's not the city's responsibility to house them.
Thank you. Mr. Wilkinson, what steps would you take to provide more mental health resources in town?
Did you say mental health resources? Yeah, this is an issue I think it's been a long time in developing, and I think we can go back to the state's reluctance to do what they need to do in this issue. At one time, the state had a larger share and a larger interest in providing for the care of these individuals. But they decided to put a lot of them out on the street, and I think that's a lot of our problems right now. I think the city can serve as a facilitator, getting the different organizations together that deal with people that have mental health issues and developing strategies to address the problem. Just as in crime, we don't have enough jails, we don't have enough institutions to care for all of these people unless we start to address the root causes that causes the mental illness and that causes crime.
That ends our first topic of crime and public safety. We're going to move on to economic development. Mr. Lewis, I'm going to start with you. St. Joseph's population slid to about 72,000 in the official 2020 census. That's a 5% drop from 2010. What needs to be done to grow the population and keep people in St. Joseph?
Well, right now, Quinn, I believe with those numbers, I think it's time to push the panic button, like I've been saying. If we do another drop of population in that same amount, in the next 10 years, we're going to be below 70,000, and I don't think we've been below 70,000 probably in the last 100 years. I think we need to figure out how we need to retain people in St. Joseph. We have an internal and external image problem right now. We have a lot of people that 70% of the people surveyed in the paper last summer said they intend to be living somewhere else besides St. Joe in the next 2 years. 82% of the people surveyed stated that our best and brightest young people need to leave St. Joe to be successful. We need to stop that trend. We need to stop that trend, and we need to stop those attitudes. It's problematic for St. Joe. It's not helping us at all. We need to attract also people from out of town. We need to make our city a better place for them, to attract them here, for them to want to come live here and stay here and raise a family here.
Quick follow-up, Gary. What would you do to attract people to St. Joseph?
I think right now it's a perfect opportunity for St. Joseph to attract people. Based on where our location is in the Midwest, our cost of living, I don't think big city living is all what it used to be cracked up to be with crime and COVID and huge property values. I think St. Joseph is a great alternative for those people coming to St. Joe. We live 30 miles, 40 miles away from a soon-to-be brand-new international airport. Remote working has never been higher right now in the nation and expected to stay at that level. So remote workers need nothing more than a computer, high-speed internet, and an airport. So I think attracting those professionals to our area would be significant for our growth and advancement.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilkinson, similar question. Why do you believe many people work in St. Joseph but live outside city limits? And how would you change that?
Well, I think it's because of the quality of life that they can experience here. When you put that up against some of the other areas in the urban areas, the crime rate, we talk about the crime rate. The crime rate in those areas is much more significant than it is here. And I think people just like this lower pace. But if they're going to live here and work elsewhere, we need to develop strategies where we can draw more people into our community, because that's the only way we're going to broaden our tax base. And I think we need to do that by incorporating all of the entities together, whether it's organized labor, industry, education, all of these, we need to get together and develop a plan, a comprehensive plan to address this issue. And we seem to do that about every 5 years. We get together and we develop these plans. But we need to start implementing these plans.
Mr. Josendale, how would you improve the lifestyle in St. Joseph to attract more people to live here?
To attract more people in St. Joseph, you have to broaden the scope of the companies we attract. You have a number of jobs that are open now. A lot of the background is we need to find additional employees that will work. In a lot of the conversations I've had, people have talked about having trouble finding employees. Some of them is the education, and we need to do both Missouri Western and Hilliard and North Central to be able to apply all the different areas for people to come and work. If you also cut the red tape of developing and growing a business in St. Joe, it would make it a lot more attractive for companies to come here, which would hire.
Ms. Lanning, you're the youngest of the 4 candidates here. So what needs to be done to keep the younger generation here in St. Joseph?
Okay, I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room, our school district. So obviously we're not running for school board, and so we have a limited scope of authority in that area. But the number one issue that people talk to me about when I'm campaigning is our school district. Again, we don't have the authority to make decisions for the school district, but I would like to see, and as mayor I will see, a stronger collaboration and partnership between the city council, the mayor's office, and the school district. Another reason why we don't have as many people that are living here is our community appearance. We have to improve in that area. And we have to get people to work. We have 30,000 adults that are not working right now. And obviously when you take out persons that are on disability or stay-at-home moms, then that's going to reduce that number. But we have to skill up our workforce. We have to create a pipeline to employment. Right now, the biggest barrier that low-income families have to employment is transportation, and we need to improve in that area.
I'm going to stay with you, Ms. Lanning. What are 3 things you would do as mayor to help the business community?
3 things. So the first thing that I think is actually probably the easiest and that we don't do enough of is get out of the way of local businesses. Making sure that if it's not an absolute requirement that we are not enforcing that on local businesses. Creating systems that help people get to work. Again, we are historically a blue-collar working-class town, but our transportation system doesn't run after 7 p.m. on Sundays or holidays. So if you're a shift worker, you're not getting the first shift when you first start at an employer. So that's something that we have to address. And the third area is just be really great communicators. I think that's been a big concern of local businesses is that they don't hear anything or they get mixed messages. And so that would be something that I would really want to improve on is just be great communicators and work collaboratively and in partnership. I think too often it's a contentious relationship, and I would want to fix that.
Mr. Josendale, back to you. Let's say a new company is looking to establish a facility here in St. Joseph. As mayor, what are your selling points to bring them here?
One of the things that I think I bring to the table is being able to talk to the companies that are looking to come here. Having been born and raised here, the quality of life to come here. Talk to them about the fact that St. Joseph is the 3rd largest exporter in the state, just behind St. Louis, Kansas City. You would be able to sit down and talk to them about we have land that's available for them to set up their operations. We have a good population around St. Joe and in St. Joe to be able to get your employment. We have at that point in time, we have a city and city council that's willing to work with business and bring them here and help them. You have a county commissioners that again, in cooperation with the city, that we can attract them both as the city and the county.
Mr. Wilkinson, I have an audience question for you. Thank you for the audience for filling out the note cards. Mr. Wilkinson, what are your plans to energize downtown and incentivize local small businesses in investing in downtown?
The downtown is a very important and vital part of our city. Even though Whitney is the youngest son here, I can remember a time when downtown was vital and bustling. And it's important in all cities. And you can see in other cities their redevelopment efforts are coming to fruition. For St. Joseph, I would continue what's the momentum that they have right now. There are a lot of good things going on downtown. And I think the city should get behind those efforts, provide funding. We have a lot of funding coming into the city from the federal government. I think we can focus those on downtown initiatives, provide funding for new development and for keeping our historical structures at the same time. That's a selling point for St. Joe, our history. I work with the museum here, and history brings in a lot of tourism. So I think we need to focus on developing the history of downtown and the new initiatives at the same time.
Mr. Lewis, another audience question, and this one is addressed specifically to you. How will you attract work-at-home professionals to St. Joseph?
Work-at-home professionals, like I stated earlier, don't have a lot of requirements to come here. They need high-speed internet, which I believe legislation passed in Jeff City yesterday, the day before. Means I believe there's some high-speed internet headed our way in St. Joseph. So that's going to help out to get those people, because that is a criteria for them to come here. Like I said, also proximity to it says right in the job description for remote workers, must be living in proximity of a approved or international airport within 50 miles. We meet that criteria also. And with our cost of living being so low compared to big cities usually, where these people reside, we attract them out of there. We can have them come to St. Joseph, get a nice piece of property, have a nice place to live, and have a nice existence here for a relatively less than comparable amount of money they would spend anywhere else.
Thank you. Final question for all of you, and if we can move fairly quick through this. The current council has already decided how to spend the first $19 million installment of American Rescue Plan Act funds. The new mayor and council will decide how to spend the next installment. Mr. Josendale, we'll start with you. How would you spend that $19 million?
The first $19 million was originally given to a committee to review and allocate with different organizations that brought suggestions, and then it would come back to the council for approval. The next $19 million, I think, should be done the same way. It's not one person, whether it's myself or any member of the council, to make that decision. The decision, and I think doing it with committee makes a lot of sense, because you put a group of people together, the different organizations and places that want to make a suggestion, that want to bring a proposal in, get to bring that proposal in. It's debated in front of this committee. They review it, and it's not one person, it's not one objective, it's not one organization that's making that decision. It's the community as a whole. And to make that,
Ms. Lanning, same question.
So I like that process that the council used because I suggested it to them. So what I like about it is that it was evidence-based and it was engaging the community. So it identified the needs. It used the 2040 plan, and then it selected projects based on the needs of the community. I would be a proponent of continuing that process, but I think we also need to look at ways where we can use that money to propel our our staff, the city staff, making sure that they have the equipment. And there's a lot of different requirements around that money. You can't just use it however you want. But making sure that if there are ways that we can use that money to create better benefits, better wages, better equipment for, of course, our first responders, but really all of the city staff. I think when you invest in your workforce, that you're going to see that everything else will kind of fall in place and that you'll have better services offered to the community.
Mr. Lewis, same question.
I agree with the way the money was allocated last time. I don't like just openly distributing it where we think it's necessary. I like the fact that the entities that wanted the money had to petition for the money and at least make a suggestion that, hey, we could use this money. Therefore, you can make a list and then you can select those people that are going to receive those funding. Now, with that being said, I'd like to see the police department get first cut on the next round of funding. I don't think they received any money in the last allocation, so I think this is a great opportunity for us to make our police department whole again. And I think that there are other organizations out there that are going to need additional funding, and they can petition for that money also.
Mr. Wilkinson.
This is money that is not going to be ongoing. So I think we need to try to get the best bang for our buck and putting it into hardware or capital projects. I would propose that some of the funding go to the organizations because they need this funding, but I think a significant part should go to capital improvements for the city. I would propose that the city take over all construction of sidewalks and curbs in the city. Currently, this is the responsibility of the property owners. I was a street superintendent in University City, where the city took over these responsibilities in installation and maintenance of all sidewalks, curbing, and the alleyways. This could be funded in cooperation with the CIP project and get the best bang for the buck for these funds. And I think this would be a tool for economic development and bringing in industries. We have a better looking city.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next topic, and that's community appearance. Mr. Wilkinson, I'll start with you. Should the city develop the riverfront?
Yeah, the riverfront is an opportunity waiting to happen, and hasn't happened for a long time. Other cities have really nice riverfronts, and as you walk along them, you kind of envision what it can be for our city. Now, how we do that is a different issue. Some of the funding that's coming in from the federal government, we can allocate to that. We can put up a tax, ask the people, do you want to develop the riverfront? People have to provide, the residents have to provide the funding for whatever we do. So we need to put together a plan if we want to sell this plan. The state has funding right now to do a significant portion of that. We need to bring them in too, as well as the county, as we talked about before. Bring all these entities in that can have a bearing on this. But yes, I believe the riverfront should be developed.
Mr. Josendale, describe how the city can enhance its efforts to revitalize downtown in the older neighborhoods.
There are a number of areas that really need to be addressed. When you look at the avenues coming into the city, we need to continue. If you look at some of the work that's been done on Frederick, you can see that. You can see some of the work that's starting to be done on St. Joe Avenue. We need to make sure that we, do the same for all areas. And one of the things I talk about is we don't want to be north, south. We want to be all one St. Joe. So we need to look at the entire city as we look at how we develop, how we clean up, how we fix the alleyways, how we fix the sidewalks. If you walk downtown right now, there are sidewalks right outside of the Civic Arena that are falling apart. And that's unacceptable. If you're trying to show people around St. Joe, you have to pick the places to take them right now. We need to fix that and do it now.
Ms. Lanning, would you say there are certain neighborhoods in town that have been neglected?
Yes.
How would you ensure that certain areas of town, those neglected areas, receive the proper attention?
So there's a program that a small group of citizens had several years ago called Better Block. So there's a program that a small group of citizens and different groups had several years ago that was called Better Block. And it was a community engagement initiative that brought different volunteers together, brought different companies and civic-minded people together, and they would focus on an area of town. And oftentimes what you will find is that if you provide a dumpster for people, if you provide some people that can go out and they can help clear out bushes and they can help our seniors take care of their properties, that you'll see the entire area really improve. And so that's what I would really want to bring back, are programs like that. If you look at Friends of Krug Park, you'll see that a small group of really engaged and passionate citizens can make huge differences, and that would be something that I would want to leverage.
Mr. Lewis, can you explain how you would engage both public and private resources to improve blighted neighborhoods?
I believe that public resources right now, the first one would be, I believe, the land bank is a good place to start. I know it's been maybe slow to get moving and action right now, but that's another place to start. Get those blighted properties under some management. Maybe look at some of the properties that the city of St. Joseph would own also. Maybe put those up for auction. Maybe generate a little revenue and get rid of some of the dead spaces that we have in this town. Blighted properties, again, are a big problem. They lead to, trash problems. They lead to neglect. They lead to just visually not a very good appearance for our city. So I think that opening that up also to the private sector, allowing those people to come in and purchase those properties and expand that out, not just locally or regionally, but into the nation. We have a lot of historic properties here in St. Joe, and I think it'd be a great opportunity for those people seeking old properties to renovate and rebuild. Let them know what opportunities we have in St. Joe that are available to them.
Mr. Josendale, what steps would you take to limit littering in town?
Well, limiting littering in town is a whole basis of when we were kids. Again, you were taught, don't litter, don't throw it out. Put it in your car and throw it away when you get gas or whatever. I think we could put a campaign on that would encourage people to pick up, don't throw stuff out. I'm not a believer of attacking small businesses that have their bags or their cups or whatever thrown out. It's not their fault. We have to address it to the people. And I think when we were kids, and a long time ago, but when we were kids, they taught us how not to do that. And they talked about the pride in the city. And when I talk about bringing the pride back to the city, that's part of it. Be proud that you're from St. Joe. Be out there telling people, I'm from St. Joe, and be happy and proud of it.
This next question is for all four of you. The current trash service in town includes about 8 to 9 independent companies that contract with individuals. Mr. Wilkinson, I'll start with you. You were on the committee that helped form the current city charter we have now. So would you support changing the city charter and adopting a citywide municipal trash service with curbside recycling?
I see a couple of council members out in the audience that when I was on the council, this issue was there. At that time, we tried to address that issue. It's an issue of private industry, individual businesses, small businesses, versus bringing in a larger, major industry to take care of the whole thing. And at that time, I sided on the side of the smaller individual private industry. But I think it needs to be regulated by the city that all of these businesses must follow certain regulations that would prevent problems that could be brought about with disposal, the trash disposal. Was there something else you had on that?
Nope,
Okay.
that's it. Ms. Lanning, same question.
So I'll say that I truly believe that we have bigger, more pressing problems. I don't think that having curbside trash pickup is what is causing the community appearance problems today. And so I wouldn't prioritize that issue of bringing that in-house over many of the other issues that we've talked about today. I do support curbside recycling. I think that it is time for us to have that service. But as far as putting any type of general revenue or, funding from city government into that goal of bringing that in-house, I just feel like we have bigger issues that are affecting community appearance.
Mr. Josino.
I agree with Whitney on that. I think we have much more important issues. My feeling and my questions about it, if you were to do something like that, as you said, there are 8, 9, 10 different people that do it right now. Who gets that? Who doesn't get that, and why? What's your basis behind that? Secondly, you have people that have much more trash than other people, so how do you deal with that issue? If it's a universal thing, you could have people that put all kinds of stuff out on the street, and it's just, there are so many different issues that are involved in it. I think that you have to look at how, where, and why.
I would describe myself as a rabid recycler. Personally, I recycle everything at my own home. You can ask my children or anybody that knows me. My garage is full right now. I think that it's necessary. I do not think we're doing enough with recycling in this town. Absolutely not. It's 2022 and we still dig a big giant hole and cover it with dirt to bury our trash. There are other options out there. There are other cities doing much better than us. Columbia, Missouri, North Kansas City, Lawrence, Kansas have great recycling programs. I've seen them in action. The citizens support them. I like municipal trash. I think it's an option we need to explore. It leads to city beautification. I think everyone needs to pay their fair share for trash. People right now are not paying for trash disposal. They're leaving their trash in other places, on the streets, throwing it out the windows, leaving it along the parkway. I think it's something that needs to be addressed in St. Joe, and I think it's something that we need to take seriously and take a long, hard look at it. It benefits our city, benefits our citizens, and it makes us a better place.
Ms. Lanning, I have an audience question for you. We have so many properties that are abandoned and run down. What are your plans for that situation?
So I think our blighted and abandoned properties fall back on the city and building inspectors. We don't have very many of them. And so I think to assume that we're going to be able to go in and we're going to be able to weed all of these properties out is not feasible. What I would like to see happen, and what I think we do need to do, is to develop a comprehensive strategy with several different solutions. So we need to make sure that our citizens are aware of the many grant opportunities that are provided through city government to be able to address the needs of your property. We need to provide programs and services that help folks get their properties back together, and then we need to be more aggressive in the land bank so that if you're not taking care of your property, you're not paying property taxes, then you don't need to be a property owner here.
Mr. Wilkinson, Ms. Lanning just mentioned the land bank. I want to ask you, the city's land bank was formed in 2019. Since then, it has acquired 3 properties. How would you enhance the work of the land bank?
Well, first of all, find out why they've only acquired 3 properties. Then we need to find ways where we can make the program more effective. But we don't need programs if they're not effective. Vacant properties are something that is an issue with this city and other cities. If we can provide the funding, and I go back to the urban renewal thing. Many of us remember urban renewal. We came in and we took out a lot of properties, but there was not a plan to replace them. If we're going to do that, if we're going to address the problem with vacant properties and vacant lots, we need to have a plan to replace those, whether it's financial institutions, lending institutions, programs that provide impetus for small developers to build. All of these things can come into play. So I think it's very important in the city that we do fill these lots in.
Mr. Lewis, can you explain to me how neighborhood revitalization can be a form of economic development?
Well, I think with neighborhood revitalization, that would lead to increased property values, that would lead to increased attitudes and increased awareness of your community. I have a quote here that says, you can easily tell what the community is doing for the citizens by what the citizens are doing for the community. So once you invest in the neighborhoods and make them better, once you get those more attractive and more beautiful and the appearance better, people start to take pride. And that pride starts to snowball to the next neighbor, to the next neighbor, to the next neighbor. So start small, I believe, and let it grow internally and take on maybe a life of its own for economic development. I mean, it seems only natural that the appearance of the neighborhood would lead to economic development down the road. It's just better for everybody.
That ends our topic on community appearance. We're going to move to our next topic on infrastructure. And we're going to address the main issue that everyone is talking about, and that's the I-229 bridge. Although the mayor and city council don't have the final say on what should be done with the bridge, I want to ask each of you, and Mr. Lewis, I'll start with you, what do you believe should be done with I-229?
I-229, I believe, is a thoroughfare that has definite functioning capabilities for agriculture, for traffic through the city. I do not believe that I-229 is a giant artery that feeds people into our downtown. If that's the case, for the last 40 years since it's been there, what has happened to our downtown with those people supposedly coming in through that artery into our town? Now, I believe that I talked to somebody from the state here a little bit ago. I thought that decision had already been made on whether the bridge was going to stay up or come down. I believe that now there's going to be some public forums to address that issue a little bit in further detail. So it's my understanding that options are still on the table. To quote famous basketball coach John Wooden, things turn out best for the people who make the best of the way things turn out. So whether we keep the bridge up or keep the bridge down, we still need a lot of economic development and riverfront development surrounding that property down there.
Ms. Lanning.
So for this issue, I have two main requirements for MoDOT. The first is that it cannot be declassified as an interstate. That would be detrimental to our funding. Right now, because it is a city, or it is a state highway, it's 90% of the cost of maintenance and repairs is paid for by the state. We can't afford to move that to our city budget. The second requirement that I would have is that we can't move, whatever MoDOT decides, we can't move that heavy traffic to our city streets, because that too is going to require us to have a higher expense. Whatever comes from this, what I would want to see happen is that we work collaboratively with MoDOT. We say, here are our expectations, here are our priorities, and whatever MoDOT, because that's essentially who's making the decision here, it must meet the needs of local businesses, including heavy manufacturing.
Mr. Josendale.
The 229 bridge is very much in discussion. It's been going on for about 7 or 8 years for any of you that don't know. But currently it stands that the MPO, which is an organization that is made up of city council member, county commissioner, people from Andrew, Buchanan, the region around, DeKalb, that has a responsibility working with the MoDOT to decide what's going to happen. They currently have a plan, which is one of the proposals. I think that there are going to start being hearings later this month to where we talk about it. And one of the biggest issues that I think is out there right now is the misinformation that's out there. I think that MoDOT will meet with the council, will meet with the public, will give their comments, they will look at the different proposals, and we'll keep it, and maybe in a different form, but we'll keep it.
The I-229 bridge, the riverfront development, downtown development, they're all intertwined. And it should be something that the city takes the initiative on because it's going to affect us the most. Mr. Josendale said this has been an issue for the last 7 or 8 years. Why don't we already have a comprehensive plan to address that issue? I think it's high time we get together and get that together because it's important to this community.
Mr. Lewis, what letter grade would you give the streets in town, and what needs to be done to increase that grade? What
letter grade?
What letter grade, yeah.
Right now, driving on the streets of St. Joe, I would give B+ to our streets. It is wintertime. There are potholes out there, but I drive on the streets extensively in this town. I have been during the campaign, doing signs, all that kind of stuff. I'm a townie. I go from north, south, east to west. I pay attention to what's going on in the streets. I'm not hitting giant potholes. I'm not seeing streets in massive disrepair. My compliments to the street maintenance people down at City Hall. I think they've been doing a really good job. I know it's a priority for the community survey that streets of ours are kept in order, and I would continue, if I was elected mayor, I would continue to make that a top priority to make sure our streets are satisfactory and better than average, and I think that's something that everybody in St. Joseph wants.
Mr. Josendale, there are multiple schools throughout town that don't have sidewalks. What steps would you take to bring sidewalks to local schools?
I think that's got to be one of our first initiatives to do. I mean, when we talk about all the different things that we're doing as a city, we had an incident where a child was killed last year because of no sidewalk by a school. We have Spring Garden, I think, has been brought up more than once of not having a sidewalk. We need to make sure that where kids are walking to and from school, that becomes a priority to get it in.
Obviously, sidewalks are expensive. How would you go about funding them?
Well, if you look at the city budget right now, it is a notebook and it sits about this thick on a table. There's got to be areas within that we can do some things. If we set it as a priority, it can be done. We just have to figure out and work with the city manager and the city employees to get it done.
Ms. Lanning, one of the more popular complaints among St. Joseph residents is how expensive their sewer bill is. What do you think should be done with the city's sewer bill?
Oh my gosh, no, I'm glad I got this one. So sewer bills have been an issue for several years, and what I will tell you is that I have seen hundreds of sewer bills, and they don't make a whole lot of sense. You can see neighbors oftentimes that are paying significantly more from neighbor to neighbor. The cons, the environmental costs, they're all very different, and there needs to be a more comprehensive assessment of those sewer bills. I've seen sewer bills that are $200 for a month's worth of use. I myself had a small house on Lover's Lane and paid $34 a month. I moved to a new neighborhood, same size family, above ground pool, and it was $45 a month. So there's something wrong there. I think that we need to do a really deep dive into those sewer bills, and we need to figure out how we can support people in equity across those bills.
Mr. Wilkinson, aside from streets and sewers, that seems to dominate the conversation around infrastructure. Aside from those, how else can St. Joseph improve its infrastructure?
Well, I'll reiterate what I've said before. I think the city should take over the construction of sidewalks, curbing, and alleyways. This would improve it vastly. I also provided funding, a way to fund that with the CIP program, and I think that's very important. As for streets, when I was in the council, we developed a 3-inch asphalt overlay program. A lot of our streets were not hard surfaced, and we provided surfacing for those streets throughout the city. This was a comprehensive program that has lasted for 30 years. We can, if we have, now I worked with the street department. I was superintendent of the streets in University City. Missouri streets are definitely difficult to work with. But if you have the right procedures, such as saw cutting the potholes instead of just dumping some coal patch in there, you can have good streets. We don't have terrible streets here.
The next is an audience question. This is for all four of you. Mr. Wilkinson, we'll start with you again. What would be your plan to ensure that the sidewalk mandate on the belt is enforced? And if you ever drive on the belt, you can see there's a mixed match of sidewalks all up and down the street.
Well, one of the things, if we have new development, and I think one of our council members here today, Ray Sisson, introduced this back in the 90s. When developers would put in a development, there had to be at least a sidewalk on one side of the street. And then you see in the new developments, children have a way to walk because of this that we put in at that time. There should be at least one way that people can walk up down all of our thoroughfares within the city. And if we have to make that a requirement of new development, and also the city could provide that if we need to do that.
Mr. Josendale.
There are a couple of issues involved in this. It's a responsibility as new development comes in, or you try to revitalize a building or something like that, that the sidewalks are put in. We have to make sure that, again, we are a user-friendly city. We run into a lot of issues where they bring in a proposal of what they're going to do with the building. The city comes in and approves it. Then after the fact, they say, oh, sorry, we forgot. We didn't put a sidewalk in there, and you got to go in and do it. So I think all new development has to be done with that. I think where they want to put sidewalks in on the other, that you come up with a plan or a procedure that we can work hand in hand, city and company, to see what we can do to make the sidewalks take place.
Ms. Lanning.
So I'll say again that I don't believe that this is the most pressing issue that's addressing our quality of life, but I do realize that it's important for many people. I am not a proponent of requiring sidewalks to nowhere. When we bring in new businesses, having them create sidewalks that don't connect to anything else, we have to be smart about that, because that's not providing a welcoming environment for new businesses. I do think that we need to set aside money in the budget to be able to repair sidewalks. But I think there's other avenues to be able to get money for that. There was a grant a couple of years ago that had a stipulation in there that you could use that funding for sidewalks, and it wasn't used that way. And so that would be what I would be focused on in that area, is what tax money in the form of state and federal grants can we bring back to our community to address those issues.
Mr. Lewis.
I have personally seen, like many of you, going down the Belt Highway, someone on a scooter along the Belt Highway with the orange flag, because there's no sidewalk or any place for them to be. So it would be a public safety issue, that's for sure. I know that at most, I believe it's required for new businesses when they come in. So unless there's a new business going in along the Belt Highway, then you're not going to get a new sidewalk. So the new business will put one in, and what we do, like Ms. Lanning just said, we have a sidewalk to nowhere. We have a section of sidewalk here, and then we have 3 blocks with no sidewalk. So unless there's a comprehensive plan, or there needs to be a comprehensive plan over a period of time to incorporate sidewalks into the infrastructure of that area. About the only way you could probably do it.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our last topic. We only have 5 more minutes, so we're going to run through these. Last topic is leadership. I'm going to ask two of you, what do you believe is the role of mayor? Mr. Lewis, we'll start with you.
I believe the position of mayor is that of a position of leadership, a flag bearer for the city, someone to carry the torch and blow the horn. I'm confident that I can do this. I believe that I'm well suited and well equipped to be that person. I believe it's going to take someone who's going to bring different entities within the city together to the table for a common goal. Those entities would be the school board, the Chamber of Commerce, city council, city government, county government. I think we all need to focus on one issue, and that's making St. Joseph's, Buchanan County, a better place. I think with my skills, my training, my education level, and my background in St. Joe, I know what is good for St. Joe. I believe I know how to get what is better for St. Joe, and we need to get everybody working together on a common goal for the betterment of the city.
Mr. Josendale, same question. What do you believe is the role of mayor?
What everyone needs to remember is that we are a city manager form of government, which means if you were to set up or to think about the city as a company, the city manager is the president of the company. It's his responsibility to run the day-to-day operations and make the city work right. The council and the mayor are, in essence, the board of directors. They set the policy. The mayor, in that role, acts as the chairman, manages the council, works with the council to make things happen. The mayor can also work behind the scenes to get cooperation through the different organizations, can work with government officials, can bring new business, new things to the city, and support the city manager in his role.
One last question for Ms. Lanning and Mr. Wilkinson. Mr. Wilkinson, we'll start with you. How would you enhance the working relationships between the city and other taxing entities such as Buchanan County and the St. Joseph School District?
Well, develop communication between these entities. First of all, right now, I know many of the individuals in those positions, so that wouldn't be a stretch. But we need to work together to develop common strategies. We're all working with the same people. Just an example, the city has a budget of $167 million. School district has a budget of $144 million. The county has a significant budget. But all this funding comes from the residents of Buchanan County. So we need to get together and develop strategies so we can maximize those funds. And that would be my main thing, to get together to talk and develop a plan of action.
Ms. Lanning, we'll end with you.
So I want to answer the role of the mayor question. So that's what I'm going to answer. So did you cheat off my homework? Okay, it's right there. So the role of the mayor to me is really someone that can be a cheerleader for the community, that can also work collaboratively with the council and with the city manager. We have a council manager form of government, and just like John said, it works very similarly to a board of directors. The charter has the council manager form of government because the mayor is not supposed to be full-time. As a working mom, I will not be in the mayor's chambers all day, every day. I don't think that works well. I think that doing that gets you into the operational weeds of City Hall, and that erodes the trust with the staff. So what I'll do, I'm very lucky that I have a supportive employer, and I work 4 days a week, and so being able to check in and be there and be a cheerleader for the community is really what I want to do.
Thank you. I want to thank all four of you for, again, being here, and good luck in the election going forward. And thank you for everyone tuned in online, on a website, and live. And thank you again for everyone being here. Natalie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Quinn. And let's give them appreciate those running for mayor. As you can see from the turnout today from the business community, it is obviously an important topic to the business community as to who serves in the mayor position for the city of St. Joseph. So with that, please do not forget to go vote, which is February 8th. Do not forget to go out and vote. And then we will be doing another one of these on March 31st here in St. Joseph at Stoney Creek at 7:15 in the morning. We'll be doing another one of these with all of the candidates after the primaries. So please come back and join us for that. We're also doing a State of the City on March 3rd here at Stoney Creek as well. And that will be Mayor McMurray kind of giving his final address. So please join us for those. Don't forget to go vote, and thank you guys for supporting St. Joseph. Thank you. Bye.
Good
So
job.
on.